So continue from the aftermath of Ash going and telling Charles Goodchow that he's made the decision to to compete in the Hoenn League, like the real big leagues. We now pick up. It now starts where he's training in preparation for the battle. He would send out all of his Pokemon and would get training intensely for many, many months and days. And he would have taught his Pokemon a few new moves. One specifically that would be Linoon in preparation for something. And then he would go into his battle against Sydney and he would switch in some Pokemon and put in his Heracross, Houndoom, Hariyama, Feraligatr along with his trusty starter. Hariyama would go and face off with the powerful Mightyena. Mightyena would be able to pull off an Intimidate, which would lower the attack of Hariyama, but Hariyama, with its brute strength, would eventually win with an Arm Thrust. After that, would send in Absol. Absol would use a Swords Dance to raise its power. It would use speed to greatly dodge most of Hariyama's attacks, and it would hit with Aerial Ace after Aerial Ace. This would eventually prove to be too much for Hariyama, taking it out. But Hariyama would have done some decent damage to Absol a bit prior. After that, Heracross would battle against Absol. This battle will be very, very even because of Absol's Aerial Ace. But in the end, the type advantage that Heracross had would prove too much for Absol despite the quite effective move. After that, Sydney would send in his powerful Sharpedo. And Sharpedo would go head to head with Heracross. This will be a battle of speed and power. But then, it would off guard Heracross with a powerful Hydro Pump, knocking it out. After that, Ash would send in Feraligatr. This would be a battle between two powerful Water-type Pokemon. Crunch is traded, and Water-type moves and Hydro Pumps traded between both sides. And this would go on for a while, until the Johto fully evolved Water Starter would get the advantage and would win. After that, Sydney would send in Cacturne. Cacturne would go up against Feraligatr. It would hold its own, and it would actually do a lot of damage to Feraligatr. This would be a long and hard battle, but in the end, both Pokemon would collide with a Needle Arm and Ice Punch, knocking each other out simultaneously. After that, Ash would send in Houndoom, meanwhile Sydney would send in Shiftry. Despite the type disadvantage, Shiftry would put up a decent fight, but in the end, Houndoom would overwhelm it with its firepower, and that would give Ash the victory over the first Elite Four member. Sydney would say, "Wow, you're a very powerful trainer. Now, when you go home, I hope you're prepared for the next member, because she's gonna be way tougher than I am." I should say, I will be. And then, the next day, Ash would train all his Pokemon. He would pick the Pokemon he wanted. And then, he would go and face Phoebe off. He would use Houndoom against Dusclops. This battle would be pretty easy for Houndoom. it would easily own Dusclops with a Fire Blast and Crunch. After that, Phoebe would send in Bayonet. Bayonet would battle against the opposing enemy. It would use Shadow Punch after Shadow Punches, and it would actually put up a decent fight. Because Dusclops had done a bit of a number on Houndoom before. After a long and hard battle, Bayonet would still fall. Then Phoebe would send in her second Bayonet. This one was more seasoned and experienced than the last one. And it would use a Confuse Ray, which will confuse Houndoom. Houndoom would hit itself constantly and constantly. The battle would go on for a while until the confusion damage would be too much, and then right before Houndoom would faint, Bayonet would send a Shadow Ball its way, knocking it out. After that, there would be Typhlosion. Typhlosion would face against its foe Bayonet. Bayonet would use Confuse Ray after Confuse Ray, confusing Typhlosion quite a number, but Typhlosion would still be able to battle, even though it would be taking some damage from the confusion. This battle would go on for a while, but in the end, the Fire Starter would win, forcing Phoebe to quickly switch in her Sableye to take advantage of this. Sableye would use Shadow Ball after Shadow Ball, and then, when Typhlosion was about to defeat it, would use Attract since it was female and Typhlosion was male. And Typhlosion would be all lovey-dovey, unable to get a hit in. But then, Ash would tell Typhlosion to snap out of it, and Typhlosion would listen to its trainer and would use a Fire Punch, finishing off Sableye. Phoebe would then send in her Dusclops. Dusclops and Typhlosion would go into an even battle. This battle would go on for a while, but Dusclops would then gut punch Typhlosion with a powerful Shadow Punch, knocking it out. After that, Ash would send in Linoon, which would shock Phoebe, and she would say, "A Linoon, what an unlikely choice." And then Ash would say, "You'll see why I sent this one in." So then, Ash would get the first go. It would surprise Phoebe by commanding for a Shadow Ball, a move that he had taught it in preparation for the battle. Shadow Ball would catch Dusclops off guard, defeating it. Dusclops would then go on to use Confuse Ray, which would confuse Linoon. But Linoon would quickly snap out of the confusion and would spam Shadow Ball everywhere. Phoebe, picking up on this, would realise what to do. She would begin evade, using its ghost abilities to evade the moves. And she would keep using special attacks like Thunder and stuff like that to damage Linoon. Ash, realising what was happening, would say, "Use a massive Shadow Ball on the ground and put your claws into it." And then Linoon would make its own version of Shadow Claw, since I don't think Linoon could learn that. Anyway, so then Phoebe would say, "What? I've never seen that before. That is crazy," catching her off guard. Ash would use this opportunity to use Shadow Claw to cut Dusclops in half. Not literally, but basically defeat it with ease. Shocking Phoebe. And Phoebe would say, "You are a special trainer. Being able to pull off a move like that must mean you have insane potential and you are quite powerful." I'm going to wish you luck on the next battle because the next Elite Four member that you're going to be facing tomorrow is going to be very, very powerful. And you're not going to win very easy. So, just try your best. And we'll see what happens from then. Alright, goodbye. And then Ash would leave. And the next day, he would try this Pokemon like the usual. And then he would select the ones he was going to use in this battle. He would then send out Hariyama against Celio. Hariyama would keep going, would battle against Celio, but Celio would freeze Hariyama, which means that Hariyama wouldn't be able to land as much blows as it wanted. But Celio would be landing as much as it could and wanted. But then, when Hariyama broke out of the ice, Celio would be defeated. After that, Glacier sent out Glalie. This battle would be long and hard, since Hariyama was fairly weakened from the last battle. But in the end, Glalie would win with a headbutt. After that, Ash would send in Houndoom. And Houndoom would easily burn up the ice-type Pokemon. But Glalie would have gotten a few decent hits with a few headbutts. After that, she would send in her Celio. This battle will be quite even. It will go on for quite a while. But then, Houndoom would be hit by a crit surf, knocking it out. After that, I should send in Heracross. Heracross would battle against Celio, going head-to-head against the Seal Pokemon. This battle will be long and hard and very even, since Celio was very, very powerful. But after a while, Heracross would be the victor, and then she would send in her second Glalie. Glalie would be very powerful, and it would be a very, very, very even battle for a long time. It would be a back and forth between headbutts and brick breaks, but in the end, Glalie would come out on top. After that, Ash, in a while, would send out his Aggron because he hasn't used it in a while. And Aggron with one Iron Tail would easily overwhelm Glalie. After that, Ash would return his Aggron and would send out Bayleaf to battle against Walrein. This battle could go either way since both Pokemon had a type advantage against each other. This battle will commence. It will be a long and hard battle. Bayleaf would use a Razor Leaf and its opponent would use an Ice Beam, both attacks colliding. This would be very long and hard. Fine whips being traded all over the battlefield, Ice Beams and Body Slams traded between both sides. But then, both Pokemon were almost down and out. And then, Bayleaf would use a Razor Leaf, meanwhile Walrein would use a Hydro Pump, and Razor Leaf would win out and would give Ash the victory. Glacier would then say, "Wow, you are a rather admirable opponent. No single grass type has ever beaten my Walrein before. And your Bayleaf has done that. You are a truly remarkable trainer. Now, tomorrow you will be facing our final member, Drake. You need to be ready to face him and defeat him. I will wish you good luck. Goodbye." And then, the next day, Ash would train his Pokemon. I would select the Pokemon he wanted, and then he would make his way towards Drake. I should have taught Tentacruel Ice Beam, swapping it out for Water Pulse. So Tentacruel will be sent out against Shelgon, and then Shelgon would battle against Tentacruel. This would be a long and hard battle, but then in the end, Tentacruel would win. And then there would be Altaria. Altaria will go up against Tentacruel. Yeah. Oh wow, my brain's dying. Let me just get back into the story anyway. And then Tentacruel will go up against Altaria. This would be a long and hard battle, but Altaria would win with a stroke of luck, having a critical hit. After that, there would be Typhlosion. Typhlosion would go up against the powerful Dragon Bird Pokemon, whatever Altaria is. And after a long battle, Typhlosion would get the victory against Altaria. After that, Drake would send in Flygon. Flygon would be Typhlosion's match. It would be a long and hard battle. But in the end, the type advantage would prove too much for Typhlosion. Typhlosion would be defeated, then leading to Ash sending in his Bayleaf. Bayleaf would go up against Flygon, and it would do a number of damage against it. It would easily defeat the weakened Flygon. After that, Drake would send in Kingdra. This would be a long and hard, very even battle. Ice beams from Razor Leaf straightened across the battlefield. But then, in the end, Bayleaf would lose, since it hadn't fully recovered from the battle against Walrein. After that, Ash would send in Feraligatr. Feraligatr would go up against Kingdra. Ice moves would be traded against between both battlefields, and the Dragon move and Dragon Breath would be traded as well. After that, Feraligatr would be, Kingdra would be done, and then finally Drake would send in his powerful Salamence. Salamence, after a long and hard battle, would then overwhelm Feraligatr, but it would be very, very weakened, and then Ash would simply call on Aggron to use one Rock Slide, which would finish off Salamence. After that, Greg would come and greet Ash and would say, "Wow, you are an astounding trainer. Most trainers don't make it past me, but you have. I wish you the best of luck against the champion. He has a surprise for you tomorrow." And then Ash would go the next day with train his Pokemon, and he would decide that he was going to use his original Hoenn team against Wallace. Then, when Ash made it to the champions room, he saw crowds there, but there was something off. The room didn't look like Wallace's. It looked like how it looked like when Steven was champion. And then Ash would look around, and then he would hear a familiar voice say, "Hello, Ash. I've been waiting for you." And then Ash would see Steven standing there. He would be shocked and he would say, "Steven, what are you doing here?" And then Steven would say, "Ash, isn't it obvious? I have regained my title as champion again. After I saw you win the Indigo League, the Hoenn League. You know what I thought about? I remembered how I was like when I was your age. A powerful, determined trainer who never gave up when he lost. And then I realised that, what am I doing just sitting here? I should be going and reclaiming my title." So I trained with my Pokemon, and I came back stronger than before and defeated Wallace easily and became Hoenn's new champion. The battle was private because I wanted to surprise everybody here, including the audience, that I was champion. So now that you are here, it's time for the battle to begin. I should send out Crobat, meanwhile Steve would send out his Karmory. Crobat will be strong and be able to match Karmory in a few areas. But in the end, both Pokemon will knock each other out. After that, Ash would send in Tentacruel and Steve would send in Claydol. Both Pokemon will go head to head, since they're both evenly matched. After a long while, the winner would be declared as Claydol, but Tentacruel would have done a number on it. After that, Ash would send in Linoone. Linoone would use a Shadow Ball and a Slash to then defeat Claydol. After that, Steve would send in his own Aggron. Aggron would be able to overwhelm Linoone, but Linoone would give it a decent fight. But in the end, Linoone would be defeated. After that, there would be Hariyama. Hariyama will go up against Aggron. This battle will be very, very, very even, despite the massive advantage over Aggron. But Hariyama's massive advantage would prove to give it the win. After that, would send in his Cradily. Cradily would go up against Hariyama. Both Pokemon will give it their all. It will be a very even fight. But Hariyama will confuse Cradily with a dynamic punch, confusing it. But then Cradily would manage to get off a Mega Drain. And then, that very same turn, when Hariyama would faint, it would be hit by confusion, knocking both Pokemon out. Then, Ash would send in Houndoom, and Steve would send in his Armaldo. This would be a long, hard, and even battle. Both Pokemon going head to head. Area laces traded all over the battlefield. Fire blasts, rock slides, everything, everywhere. But in the end, Houndoom would lose, but not without leaving its opponent with a burn. But the moment Aggron stepped into the battlefield, Armaldo would faint from the sheer exhaustion. After that, Steve would send in his Metagross. This would be a long and hard battle. Meteor Mashes traded between Metal Claws. Rock Slide traded between Psychics. Both Pokemon not giving up. Would be very, very hard and long battle. Both Steel types giving it their all. But in the end, both Pokemon will be down to one move. Metal Claw and Meteor Mash respectively. Steven will command for Meteor Mash, and Metagross will come charging in. But then, when Ash commanded for a Metal Claw, all his memories of battle flashed before him. He remembered first getting Aron, and it running and using a Metal Claw against all of its enemies. And then, when it was running, it evolved into Lairon, and it was still using a Metal Claw until it finally evolved into Aggron, and then used the Metal Claw to defeat Sceptile, and then all the other enemies that it defeated. And then the Claw came and it collided with Metagross. There would be a massive explosion, but then Metagross would fall. The bond between Aggron and Ash would be too strong for Metagross to overcome. So Ash would win and would be crowned champion of Hoenn. After that, Steve will come up to him and would say, Wow, you have grown so much since I last saw you. You are now the champion of Hoenn, but I have a gift to give you. These toads reacted weirdly when I put them around my arm, and here they are. Ash would receive a keystone and an agronite, but he wouldn't know what these are yet. And Ash would say, hey, what are these? And he would say, I don't truly know, but one day you will know. And then Ash would go and give these to Birch. And then he would say, Birch, find out what these are. Can you please research for what these are? And then he would go and he would research. And the next day, Birch would come and tell Ash about Mega Evolution. And then that is where we leave off. Now that Ash is a champion of the Hoenn League, of Hoenn, what will he do with his journey and his life? Watch the next part